Hello. This week's topic is political socialization and public opinion. And in the book, you'll read about political socialization, which is the process by which people develop their political beliefs. In this video, I want to talk about the process of measuring public opinion. A lot of times you'll see reports in the news of a new public opinion poll that's been done. It'll say that approval of the president is 35%, or this candidate is predicted to win the election and he or she will win with this certain percentage of the vote. And a lot of times when people see those polls, they'll ask the question, well, how can we know that that's true? Well, one thing that you should know is that we don't know 100% for sure that the results reflect the broader public. But if an organization, a media organization, or a polling firm uses a certain process for putting its poll together, you can generally understand that the poll is probably pretty close to what the broader public is thinking. And I hope you read through the chapter carefully on this, because I know sometimes it's easy to be skeptical of polls, and you always should have some skepticism about any poll, just because you should ask the question, well, who put this poll out? What were the questions asked in the survey, and who did they survey? But you'll read in the book that if you interview a random group of people, and random means that anyone in a population has an equal chance or a known chance of being picked to participate. So you're not picking only people from certain parts of the country, or you're not picking only people of one gender or one race or one religion, but that you're getting a cross-section of the broader public. It should be a pretty good reflection of what the rest of the public thinks. But again, randomness, choosing a random sample, is the key. And another key is that you interview enough people that you can get a cross-section of the public that would reflect the broader public. Typically, about 1,000 to 2,000 people is enough for a national survey, meaning that if 1,000 to 2,000 people are chosen randomly from any population, it should be a pretty good reflection of what the broader public would think about that issue or that topic. And again, we don't know for certain that it's 100% accurate. This is based on statistical probability. But again, you'll read about sampling error. A margin of sampling error is referring to the estimated difference between the results of your survey and what you would have gotten if you had interviewed every single person in that population. If you interview every single person in the population, you'll get 100% accuracy, at least in terms of the population, because you're interviewing everybody. But if you have a sample, then there is a gap between what they're saying and what the broader public would say if they participated. But again, you'll read about how certainly certain groups can look at things in a similar way, whether it be women or African Americans or Catholics or any group. There are a lot of similarities among how people think about issues. And so typically, if you interview 1,000 people to 2,000 people at random from the population, it should be pretty close to what the broader public is thinking about that topic or candidate or issue. Now, a lot of people raise the question of what happened in last year's election, because it seemed as if Hillary Clinton was set to win the presidential election. All the polls seemed to be saying that she would be the winner, but obviously on election night, Donald Trump was the winner. A couple of things to think about with the election polls. First of all, remember that Hillary Clinton did win the national popular vote. She won it by about 3 million votes. And that's it's not a landslide by any stretch, but it certainly was a large number. And most of the national polls that were released in the last few days before the election had Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote by a couple of points. So the polls were not really that far off about the national popular vote. Now, remember, of course, that our president is chosen through the Electoral College, the votes by state. And, of course, that's where Hillary Clinton came up short. She lost the states that would be needed to give her 270 electoral votes. Donald Trump ended up winning those votes, and thus the election. Now, the states were the Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania were kind of the deciding states. Those are states that President Obama had won 4 years earlier, and that Hillary Clinton lost, and she did not lose these states by a lot. So the reality was that the polls were not dramatically off. Certainly there were some problems. And in particular, it might be the issue of whether Donald Trump voters might have been less likely to want to reveal their choice to a pollster on the telephone. But overall, the polls were not all that far off the mark. Again, that's why you always, when you look at a poll, you want to ask some questions about the sample size. You also want to look at how close the margin is if it's an election poll. If it's only a couple of points separating the candidates and there's a 3% margin of error, the reality is that we don't know we really don't know who's going to win based on that poll. But if you have a candidate who has a 20-point lead over his or her opponent, then it's almost certain that candidate's going to win the election because that's well outside the margin of error. One last thing about polls is that you want to be careful about self-selected polls. Those are surveys where the sample is not chosen at random. They're actually the sample is chosen themselves. They choose themselves to participate. It doesn't matter how large the group is. If the people are picking themselves to participate rather than being randomly chosen, then it doesn't really. There's no way you can generalize the results to the broader population. So I just wanted to give you some background on polling. I know it's a topic that people have a lot of questions about. Please make sure you read through this in the book. And if you have any questions, give me a shout out by email or by phone. All right. Have a great week.